only a nightmare. It's just in my head. It's only a nightmare. It's just in my head.
Yes, what's happening everyone? It's ReganCipher here. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. And safety is the theme of today's review. We're taking a look at a technology which facilitates that when you're out and about, maybe on the bike or out for a run. We're looking at the new bone conduction release from Haylou, the Purfree Lite. You may recall on this channel not that long ago we reviewed the original Purfree and the Purfree Buds. These were very much premium products from Haylou, and you saw that with some of the awards they won, like the Red Dot for Design Award, as well as some accolades from the likes of Forbes. However, if you're a user that hasn't tried bone conduction headphones before, it's a new technology to you and maybe you're on the fence about trying it, the price tag even with those products was probably a little bit too high a barrier to entry. Granted, it was much cheaper than the competition, the likes of Shocks, who operate around that £100 to £120 mark, but the original Purfree, being around $80 to $100, was still pricing some consumers out. And it's those price conscious consumers that Haylou are targeting this time to maybe get them to give bone conduction a try. This model is pitched at a much more competitive $59.99 MSRP, but you can pick them up for the bargain price of $37 currently from the Haylou website. There's links and a voucher code provided in the description below. So if the price of the Lite is so much cheaper than the original, then what are you not getting? Well, I'll take you through some of the differences between the two models throughout the duration of the review. But the headline difference here is that this model is only IP55 compared with IP67. That's likely down to the use of a USB-C charging socket this time rather than a proprietary one, and there are definitely some pros and cons to that. There's some slight changes in the ergonomics, in the material with which it's designed, but overall you're still getting some fantastic features. It's Bluetooth 5.2 ready. They're using the Qualcomm QC3044 chipset. You've got the ability to connect to two simultaneous devices, and this time around they support the Haylou app. With 10 hours of battery life, you're probably not going to get caught short. This model's more complimentary than compromise, and hopefully by the end of the review you'll be able to decide which is the right one for you. And you may recall from the reviews of those other Haylou sports products that the unboxing was like a work of art. But this time around they've definitely gone for a more practical, more functional experience. It reflects the price. It is a cheap, cheerful, brightly coloured enclosure that has most of the key parameters listed on the back, pretty much all of which we covered in the intro. You're not getting a load of accessories with this release, but the ones that you do get are housed in a smart looking black box. You've got the instruction manual, which is in English and Chinese, and also a short but reasonably good quality white USB A to C charge cable. And the manual's actually pretty good. There's not too much in the way of diagrams, it's mostly text, but you're probably going to need it to get used to the control scheme. It's not that the controls are complicated, they're actually pretty straightforward, but you've got some button shortcuts to do certain operations, like initiate pairing from a multi-point perspective, and also to switch to the outdoor EQ. I'll talk a bit more about those two EQ options in the audio section. So let's talk about the design. The Purfree Lite are a quite striking set of bone conduction headphones that have gone for a brighter, almost luminous colour scheme, certainly differentiating them from the original BC01. The original featured a titanium band and skin-friendly silicone covering the entirety of the exterior. This time around it's a 3-section titanium wire with ear hooks and a rear hang. Now that's not a great deal different to most bone conduction headphones. There's not too much you can differentiate in the design. The transducers are a little bit thicker than the original, but I still wouldn't call them thick in comparison to other models out there. The headset weighs just over 26 grams, so it is slightly lighter, but Haylou have definitely compromised on the materials. It feels a lot colder against your skin. It is a little bit more lightweight, but it's definitely not as premium feeling. It's a bit easier to see when you put the two models alongside each other. There's almost a powdery style finish to the original, whereas it's mostly a shiny, plasticky sort of feel and look, certainly to the control areas on the Purfree Lite. Whilst most users probably won't really notice the difference, if you're a die-hard bone conduction user, you'll probably favour the original due to the softness against your skin, particularly if you're using it over a longer period of time. Another thing to bear in mind is that whilst the original was IP67 rated, the Lite is only IP55. That is going to give you some limitations over the environments where you can use them. Certainly they're fine with a splash of rain or sweat, so I would say they're more tailored for using them for workouts in the gym, going for runs. But if it's extreme sports or where you're hiking for really long periods of time, then perhaps the original BC01 are a better option in that respect. Now, as you can see on this model, you've got the option of charging with USB-C only rather than the magnetic proprietary cable which existed on the original BC01. I suspect that is one of the reasons for the IP rating dropping from IP67 to IP55, but it's certainly more convenient than carrying around lots of proprietary charge cables. When you plug it in and the headset starts to charge, you will see a small red light appear on the control unit on that side. Also on that side, you've got two of the three control buttons. The plus volume button doubles up as a power on button, and it combines with the MFB to conduct certain functions we mentioned previously. Minus turns the volume down, and then you've got a multi-function button which is on the top on the right hand side. It's a little bit flimsy and it's a bit difficult to find sometimes, but it's perfectly okay, and pressing different combinations of this will cycle through your tracks. As I said, it's constructed as a 3-part titanium band. I did try my very best to destroy the Purfree Lite, but obviously I'm not quite strong enough. Two models wear very similar, although I'd say that the band on the Purfree Lite is slightly wider, and you've got a slightly more snug fit on the original Purfree, but really it's much of a muchness. The thin profile of the band and the ear hooks is a benefit because it means that if you're using them for cycling, they're not going to get in the way of the helmet or any glasses that you might be wearing. And their stability makes them great for running. They're also good for HIIT workouts, kettlebells, mountain climbers, stuff like that. Just bear in mind they're not so good for any activities on the floor or the bench where your head is going to be resting against the floor. So now onto the audio, and the Purfree Lite uses the Qualcomm QCC 3044 chipset, and it means that provided your phone supports AptX, then that's the codec which the Purfree Lite will default to. However, if you're an iPhone user, bear in mind it's going to default to SBC, and you are going to notice a slight difference in the audio delivery. They're also using a 2nd generation transducer and a 16mm dynamic driver, and this combination Haylou have quantified to a 17% improvement in sound quality. I'm not really sure how they've measured that, but there are some notable differences that are worth outlining here. Firstly, the lower frequencies. Haylou have definitely made it a more warmer sound. There's definitely more presence to the bass on this model. And if you're a bone conduction user, generally bass isn't going to be your priority. The setup isn't really optimized to it. To get the full feeling of the lower frequencies, you probably have to have some kind of ear protectors in your ear to facilitate that. As a result, the feeling of bass isn't generally as strong with bone conduction headphones. However, you can definitely sense more bass on this model. And when that bass comes through, you notice that the transducers have a little bit more vibration to them than the previous iteration. I found this a little bit off-putting at first, but over time I got used to it and it wasn't quite as bad. It's kind of the price that you pay for that added bass. But that slight tilt in the sound signature means that the vocal delivery isn't quite as strong on the default setting. However, on this model they've added app support, and you've got one additional EQ option which is listed as outdoors. Outdoors changes the sound profile to a little bit more like the original, where your female vocals in particular pop out a little bit and that bass is ever so slightly reduced. It also notches the volume up a little bit, and that was one of the drawbacks with the original model, and in this instance I did notice an increase in volume from the Purfree Lite. So that is one incremental improvement that they've made with the sound there. And otherwise, when you've got that outdoor mode selected, there isn't really a great deal of difference between the two models other than it being slightly louder, and arguably the vocals are a little bit more shrill. But Like I said, you've got the two options. You've got standard or outdoors, and having that flexibility and being able to choose between the two is definitely a big benefit. If you're a bone conduction user, you probably realize you're not going to get an audiophile experience. The focus is on getting enough volume that you can hear it over your surroundings and not inducing fatigue, because you're probably going to be using them in activities that are spread over a number of hours, and I think Haylou have definitely delivered on that objective here. So in terms of call quality, there are some differences between the two models. I'm going to give you a few examples of where I used the Purfree Lite both indoors and outdoors and how it sounds. And as a comparison, there's a link in the top corner to the original Purfree review, but I've included one of those comparison videos here to save you flicking between the two.
We're testing the Haylou Purfree Lite for call quality in a busy outdoor environment. I'm in a reasonably busy city here in the UK on a Friday afternoon, so you've got a mixture of different vehicles coming through. Maybe we'll get a siren in a second. We've already had one or two go through in the other tests which I've been doing this afternoon. And again, apologies, I've just had some dental procedure. The anesthetic is wearing off, so I'm really struggling to talk. So excuse the way that I'm speaking. I'm just bitten my lip. So hopefully we can carry on with this. But you get the idea. I mean, these are the kind of sounds which you can expect to hear on your daily commute. So we're trying to replicate what it would sound like if you're walking to school or walking to work or walking to college, something like that. And this time we're testing the Haylou Purfree Lite bone conduction headphones in a busy indoor environment. We're in a coffee shop here where you've got a variety of different sounds, like people nearby chatting, sounds of the baristas making coffee, the sounds of plates and cups clanging, for want of a better word. So these are the kind of sounds which are going to infiltrate your call, and similar to the kind of sounds that you'll get in other busy environments as well, like school corridor, college corridor, busy office, something like that. Interested to hear how the Haylou Purfree Lite performs. And just for comparison, this is the original Haylou Purfree BC01 bone conduction headphones. They're much more expensive than the Purfree Lite, so I'm interested to hear a comparison, see how the mic performs compared with that cheaper model which you heard a moment ago.
For me, you've got pretty decent performance on both models, although the earlier model, the BC01, I think elevated your voice a little bit more than the Lite. In certain scenes, busy indoor scene for example, your voice could sound a little bit too soft, although it does have quite good weight and tone. Onto the battery life, and that is one area where there is a quantifiable and marked improvement over the original. The original gave you 8 hours on paper, and I found that it actually wasn't far off that, and sometimes went beyond that in my own tests. This time around they're advertising 10 hours and in my own tests I got just over 9 hours pretty much every time before they conked out on me. That battery life sees them outperforming the likes of Shocks and some of the other front runners in the premium portion of the market. They also feature quick charge, where 15 minutes juice will give you an additional 2 hours of playtime. And again, this is really useful, and when you add it to the USB-C cable, it makes them really convenient for just topping up and giving you a bit more juice. If, for example, you're away for the weekend and you're going on multiple hikes, you've got a USB-C charger in the car, you can just plug them in for 15 minutes and then it's going to give you enough that you can use them on your next activity. In terms of other features, well, let's have a look at the connectivity first. They're Bluetooth 5.2, courtesy of that Qualcomm chip. And I haven't had any dropouts yet. As I said, I've used them across various different activities. Connection has been rock solid. You've also got the option of multi-point connectivity, and you can initiate multi-point by holding down the plus and the MFB button for 3 seconds, and it will start pairing with your second device. And you've got the added bonus of seeing which devices you're connected to in the Haylou app. So to summarize, I'm really impressed with what Haylou have done here. As I mentioned previously, the price tag of bone conduction headphones has been a real barrier to entry for users who are considering trying it out and would like to give it a go for various reasons. But it is expensive if you go for Shocks, or even if you went for the original Purfree. If you're on a budget and you just want to try it out, this is your introduction into bone conduction technology, then I definitely see some merits in this model. Of course, there are some compromises over the original. You've got a slightly reduced IP rating, call quality perhaps isn't quite as good, and they don't feel as premium and are maybe not as comfortable over prolonged use. However, consider your use case. If you're not using them for long hikes or ultra marathons and you want to try something out for the commute, perhaps gym sessions, maybe the odd run, maybe the odd bike ride here and there, then that compromise isn't going to be a massive deal for you. You've also got those two options in the sound. You've got longer battery life and app support, which might deliver firmware updates to improve the product in the future. So if you're on the fence about bone conduction technology, this is definitely a better option than some of those no-name brands on Amazon. We know what Haylou have been able to deliver over the course of their sports wearable technology, and this is a very welcome addition to their portfolio. If you found the review useful, please do give it a like and consider subscribing to help grow the channel further. For now, it's ReganCipher signing off.